I've got this piece that I'm going to use to connect the two barrels together, two halves of barrels. And this is a 3-inch to 2-inch reducer. Now these are 2-inch connections inside, and you can use some. There's lots of people talking about how you connect those with 2-inch connectors and doing different things. But what I want to do is connect them with as big a hole as possible. And so I'm going to just use this, and it fits just perfectly inside of that. And now I'm going to need just a little bit more space, because of where this is, that's why I need something in here. So I'm going to add just a little bit and then double again. So I'm right about half of this whole connector. So I'm going to cut that at half, and I feel like I'm going to be pretty safe about putting this together. Once I cut it in half, then I can slide one end in there and slide one end in there, slide the barrel up on that, and then I can connect the other side. So this is going to be kind of a permanent solution of connecting stuff. Is not moving things around like I'd really wanted to when I first started thinking about putting the worms underneath the guinea pigs, but I think it's going to work out real well. So I'll go get this cut and we'll see what happens. I've got my selection here on blades, and what I'm deciding to do is I'm going to use this metal bit. As you can see, we don't have a lot of choice here in Ecuador. I don't have a nice miter table or a miter saw, or even a table saw. I'm just going to have to use a regular jigsaw, and I could cut with this one. I typically would use this bit for cutting the plastic, but because this is going to be a little bit hard to hold and everything, I think I'm going to go with this one. It's typically for cutting metal. At least that's where I'm going to try first and see where I get. And of course, wearing gloves, absolute must on a project like this, because it's real small and going to be hard to cut. You want to be real careful. So that worked out really well. Still got enough of a lip on this to connect to the next piece, and then I've got a nice little piece here. So let's go connect the those tanks together. That fits in there just really nicely. I double checked on the inside. There's no real space in there. Be lots of room for worms to move in and out. So that's going to be nice. And then I've already checked on this other side that it's going to fit. It's a little hard for me to show you on video with one hand here. So, but this fits right up in there, and that'll just go snug. Now notice I've left the original lip on the outside. And the reason for that is because even though it went in easier this way, I want this one to be going in as easy as possible. So I left that original lip because it's angled just ever so slightly. And it's nice to be able to just slide this other one right on top of it since I'm doing all that work. So I'm just going to go ahead and connect that up and tighten this thing to the other side, and we should be in pretty good shape. Well, that worked out just amazingly great, in my opinion. Got a little bit of space in between these, which is as it worked out anyway. I couldn't quite get them both on top of that piece of wood. I could have, but I decided I'd rather have them sit with this piece there. So it was just a decision as I was going along here. The original plan was a little different, but that just fits in both sides. You can see how it matches up real well on both sides there. And so that'll be a nice place for the worms to jump in and out. And so the last thing I've got right now, I'll back up here and show you. It's not very level, it's not very square, but you know what? I don't think the worms are going to mind. And it's going to be behind, underneath where the guinea pigs are anyway, so even stepping back, you're not going to see much. I'd like it to be prettier. If I had more tools and more help, I could probably make it better. But for doing all of it by myself, as I'm going along here with very few tools at all, then I think that's a pretty decent job. I can see that I didn't quite cut the barrel square, but again, it should be great for a worm farm. And this is going to work out real well right underneath the guinea pigs and above the compost, and it saves a lot of space for us because we don't have a whole lot. I mean, we're really cramped in over here in this corner, in amongst and behind the trees. In case you hadn't seen all this before, this is all the space I really have is behind these little trees. And this is the current worm farm. I'm going to leave that one as it is. I've got this bucket of from a garden clean out, a greenhouse clean out, and it's really full of worm eggs, and there's some worms in there. It's a little dry on the top. We didn't get to it yesterday, but I'm going to put that in here as a starter here in a few minutes. But one thing I need to do before I get anywhere else, and that's the last thing I'm going to do before I start filling it, and I'll continue this video in a little while when I start to fill this, is I'm going to put some water in here and see where the bottom is, because I want to make sure I get a drip and be able to get the thing. So I'm just going to pour a little water in here and see where it is. It moved, I would expect, and it moved just where I thought. This looks like this was the lower spot. This had been in the barrel by itself. The lowest spot is actually in the middle, but because this is ever so slightly angled, that's where this drain needs to be. So I'm going to cut a hole for that, and then let's see on this side where we are. And yeah, it looks like that's going to be in a different spot. Get a little more water here and just let it pool, and we'll find out where it is. Okay, it's on that side there, so they're both kind of going downhill in that respect. I didn't expect that, so that's fine. What we got to do is just put a little bucket underneath each one of them. It'd be great if we had some way we just tie them together and they both come into one bucket, but the way everything's constructed here, that's just not going to work out. And so I'll just put a little bucket over here on this end and a little bucket on this end. I'll drill the holes, and then that's great. So I'll get started here filling these up and using that bucket full of current worm stuff. But I got to first drill these holes and do some stuff, so we'll talk about that in a little bit. Well, here we are. I've got the two halves of the tank put up here inside the composter to be underneath the guinea pigs, and don't need these support bars anymore because this is really supporting it very strong, and I don't have to put those support bars in there. So I was concerned I was going to have to add some more wood and reconstruct everything, but no, I just use those and it gives excellent support, so that's great. So I put in the half-inch holes, and I've checked the water that it drains real well. I cleaned out most of the plastic burr around that, but it certainly drains well. I put in a piece of 1/8" hardware cloth, and then just put a brick over the top of that, and then once there's dirt on top of that, it'll close a lot better. But that should keep all the worms out of there for the most part. If they do, then they'll go into the bucket that we'll be putting underneath, and we'll find them and put them back in their home. So for the meantime, I've gone ahead and closed this, just using the same plugs that came out of the top. They fit on this side, so that stops any dirt from coming through. And I went ahead and put it on both sides just for good measure. We're just going to use this side for right now anyway, and as this grows, then we'll start using the other side. And I just dig down in here and take that out, and then the worms can move through. So that's that going on. We had one worm up here. I don't know where he is now, but after I put this bucket in here, we had some worms showing up on top, and this is that 5-gallon bucket, so this will hold quite a bit more. Now this has a lot of eggs in it. This was from a clean out of a garden greenhouse, and I filtered it out and took the good dirt to make potting soil, and then this is the stuff that popped out of the next round through the trommel, and it had some worms in it. We cleaned those out manually, and then it has a lot of eggs in it, so we're starting this underneath the guinea pigs instead of putting this over in the worm farm. We took the worms that we got and had put them over here in this worm box, and we're trying to get this to really grow. But now we're trying to get this to start from just eggs and a fresh type of things. Well, there's a worm. Is it? No, that's a piece of grass. I guess they've all jumped down in the bottom by now, but anyway, this is the start of it. Things are going real well. There's a lot of room for additional food, and the droppings from the guinea pigs. So we'll see what it is in you know, a month or so. We'll try to dig down in there and see kind of how we're getting any worms or anything's going on. We've got, I'd say, very few adults in there. In all of that, there might be 2 or 3, because we did hand pick them pretty carefully to get out of there. We've got some more dirt that we're going to be putting in a little later, and we're going to have the kids pick through. So I don't know how good they're going to do about getting the worms out, but I picked them out of this, and we know that it's quite clean. So that's our start. And I may put the stuff from the kids over here and see if it just runs any different. So, well, we're always trying and doing things, and I hope you're learning something from our project of how we're putting this stuff together. Leave me comments, suggestions, ideas, thoughts, or anything else, and be sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching.